Good evening, everyone.
Hello.
Good evening, Dr. Ken.
I got a quick question. I have this background, and depending on how Zoom's set up, sometimes it's a mirror image or not. So are you seeing AI or IA?
Yeah, we see AI. That's fine.
Oh, good. Okay.
Okay. So, hello, students. Welcome to the webinar on generative AI. I'm sure you must have heard a lot of different names nowadays, like ChatGPT, Gemini, right? And you also must be thinking that how can you make use of these tools, right, in your day-to-day life, in your education, in building projects, maybe in improving creative writing. So there are various uses of these platforms which we can make, right? And hence this webinar is being conducted, and we have Dr. Ken Khan. So we all know about him. Most of you must have also participated in the internship program with Dr. Ken. Dr. Ken is an ex-researcher with Oxford University. He has also done his PhD with MIT University. He has also recently launched a book, AI Apprenticeship, which also talks about generative AI and its use cases, right? So I hope this webinar will be very interesting. It will give you knowledge. It will also be a little bit of fun and interactive. So, so all over to you, Dr. Ken. I think we can get started.
Good. All right. Thank you. Yeah, I think it's probably best if I prepared some slides, so I'll click on the share screen, and this looks like it should be the good one. And just in case, share. And these are the slides. Did that work? Do people see this creative uses of generative AI, or do I need to share a different window? Is the sharing working? Um, well, maybe I'm not hearing anything. Is the sharing that I set up working where it says creative uses of generative AI? Or should I share it with a different window? Um, let's yes, okay, good. uh, let's get started. Okay, so this is the plan for today for introducing generative AI from a point of view of how you can be creative with it. There's a lot of other uses of generative AI where you could uh, discover lots of facts, have conversations with it to learn more about any topic. You could ask it to write things for you. And I will be talking about writing, but much more in the context of creative writing. So these are the three main topics today about how a chatbot could help you enhance your writing, how you could use it to develop apps, and I'll give you some tips and strategies for how to use them well. And the whole big idea is that you should always think of what you want to do as a conversation. It could be a fairly long one. It's not very much about thinking first exactly what it is you want the chatbot or the LLM to do, and you tell it, and then if you get what you like, you're happy, and if you don't get it, you edit your prompt and try again. That's not the style. The style is to have a conversation with the purpose of creating apps and debugging them or to do writing. And one of the things these chatbots are also good at is to brainstorm right in the middle of a conversation. You could say, well, do you have any suggestions for how we can improve this story or this app or whatever? And there's other things you could do that's in the book but I won't be talking about today. And those are the grayed out ones there. So when it comes to writing, there's just so many different ways in which you could work together with a chatbot. You can take turns. I'll show you a little demo of that in a minute. You could describe the characters and the plot, or maybe just one of those things, and say, "Can you write a first draft or whatever?" Or you write a draft and then ask it for suggestions, and then you edit, and then you get more suggestions. You go back and forth. So you're letting the chatbot be the editor. Um, Another way to do it is you could ask it for a lot of ideas for something that you're thinking you want to write about, and then you pick one, and then you act more like the editor. It maybe writes a draft, and you give it a lot of feedback, and it edits the draft. You give it more feedback, and it edits it. Um, um, and then any mixture of all these will work fine too. So, as an example, um, let's take turns writing a story. I'll start with the first sentence, you add one and repeat. Now, you could do this with any of the top chatbots, even for some of the story writing, creative writing, even the smaller, even open source ones work. But for much of what I'm going to talk about, I really recommend one of the top 5 here, but any of them will be fine. So I'll give you a live demo about creating apps to give you a sense of what that's like. But for story writing, it just takes a little bit of time. I have to type in things that you have to wait for the response. I type things. So I think it's better if we look at an example I did last week or something. So I happen to use Gemini, but any of those 5 would do this. And I say, let's take turns writing a story. I'll start with the first sentence. You have, and it got a little mixed up, which is a bit rare. I haven't seen that with Claude or ChatGPT. So, because it wrote the first one. And I said, why did you start? I said, I would start. And it says, oh, my apologies, you're right. Let's start off. I'm ready. I'm waiting for you. So I had an idea about a girl who goes back to ancient Mesopotamia because she's interested in the invention of writing. So I say, that she put a laptop in her backpack and stepped back in time to ancient Mesopotamia. And it came back, a jolt of displaced air tickled her nose as the familiar hum of the temporal drive faded, replaced by a cacophony of unfamiliar sounds. And then I wrote, she was eager to explore the invention of writing. And then dust motes danced in the shafts of sunlight that pierced together the roughly constructed buildings, illuminating clay tablets stacked high on makeshift shelves. And then I added, she walks over to the clay tablets, hoping to talk to a scribe. The air grew thick with the scent of damp air and something vaguely sweet, like crushed dates, as she approached the figure hunched over a tablet. And then I said that I wanted to switch to Canvas mode. And Canvas is something that all the top 3 or 4 chatbots now support. It didn't exist a few months ago. And what you get is the story ends up as a separate section of your conversation. So here's the story, and let's see. I think this is the part that we did, and as I, what we're seeing here is the whole final version of it. We're not at that point. It was just what I've highlighted here. But what happens is that as I said, okay, now you finish the story, given that we had this part, and it added this extra paragraph and made the story further. And then an important thing is that if you don't like some part of it, I didn't want it to have this, whatever it was, young male scribe. I wanted it to be an old local woman, and that Sherry, the main character, talks to her. So then it said, okay, here's the updated version. And what we're seeing here is the updated version. Now, some of these chatbots makes it easier when you go back to the history to see the different versions. And I don't know if I say try and, no, that's a separate thing. So let's just ignore that. So that gives you a little bit of a sense. I'm going to just close that, of how a simple back and forth, but how you could give feedback, how you could have it finish parts of it. You could, there's quite a lot of leeway. And then I think sometimes creative writing it can be combined with creative illustration in some sense. So I said that I would like illustrations for each paragraph of this story, and the story that I picked was the one you just saw that I generated with that conversation with Gemini. Now here I went to ChatGPT because they right now is the best for generating illustrations. And here you see Sherry walking through the time tunnel, meeting the old woman. She's showing her the tablets, and then maybe even Sherry is starting to write on it or something. And that was just from pasting the story in together with this. Now, there's a whole nother way in which you could do, or many other ways you could do illustrations. And this is one where you have a lot more control over things, because what I'm doing here is I'm saying, I'm not asking for the illustrations, I'm asking for the descriptions of the illustrations. So as I said here, maybe I'll make this, well, I'll just read this. I would like descriptions of illustrations I could give to an image generator for each paragraph of the story. And then I pasted in the story. And then for each paragraph, it wrote a nice little prompt with a little bit of extra information. And and then it even asks, do I want to have these images? But I took the first one and I wasn't quite happy with it. So I made 2 or 3 little edits and then said, please generate the first illustration. And these things aren't perfect yet. It's a bit silly if the story is how she's just stepped out of the time machine, that she's walking into the time machine. So I said she should be exiting the time machine. And the way I imagined the story, she was younger than this. So it fixed it right away. She's coming out of the time machine and looks younger. So then I went to the second paragraph and pasted it in, maybe with some small edits. And it generated a perfectly good illustration for that part of this thing. But then I caught a mistake, because if you see the Sherry here is wearing shorts, and here she's wearing long pants. So I said she didn't have shorts in the first illustration, change this, and it just did. Now, if I cared, I think it somehow decided to make her younger each time, which I didn't really want. So I still could do this. These conversations, well, if I go back to the conversation in my history, this is in the share, I could then say, oh, we'll make her look older and keep going like this. So again, it's a back and forth conversations where you're giving feedback to make an illustrated story. And sorry, I'm making the point here that Claude's the only one right now that doesn't have the ability to generate illustrations like this, but these 4 will work fine. Okay. So, and if you look at the book, or one thing I should do right now is put into the chat this, all the slides. So I'll say, here are all the slides, because these slides have links and examples that you might find worth looking at on your another time. So here I explored a lot a proof that Euclid made 2,000 years ago about why there's no limit to the number of prime numbers, and made a very nice illustrated story, but also epic poem, a courtroom drama, comedy routines, all sorts of things I asked for, all around the idea of conveying the ideas behind this proof. And it could do even more complicated mathematical things, and you could even embed some programming inside of your stories by asking it to add that. And you could create stories about any science topic or history. These are just links to some examples, or of course, pure fiction, a bit like what we were just doing. For some reason, it's stopped being full screen here. Well, it doesn't matter. All right. So now let's talk about creating web apps. So first off, you don't need to do any programming to create apps, and you can create apps in any programming language. But the advantage of web apps, which rely on JavaScript and also HTML and CSS, is that it can run in every browser. There's nothing to install. The browsers have so many capabilities, and the chatbots know so much about all the things that browsers could do. It makes it very easy to share. You could get a link, or you could just send somebody the file, and they can run it without having to install anything. And it'll run on all sorts of devices and stuff. I'm going to, well, I guess it doesn't much matter. I feel like maybe if I do this, here, I'm gonna go back. It's just that I wanted to have a full screen. Here we go, full screen. So what I'm going to show you next is just a huge variety of web apps that you can make just by having conversations. All the examples I'm going to present in the next few minutes, none of them had, did I have to write a line of code? So this is one where you have hidden words and you find it, and you could ask it to change it to Hindi or Japanese, and it'll just, once you've got a program, it can make a new version of it in another language. You can invent your own games. This one, I could show you some of these. These are all fresh, I mean, live links. So in this game, if a flower gets hit by water balloons, it gets bigger, but they're all getting smaller because they're drying out, so they need more water, and you have to water them. It's a really simple game, but it's an example of how you could create such a thing just by having little conversations. So those are some of the games, riddles, other things. You could make scientific simulations. So here's one that's pretty complicated, that's simulating an ecosystem in which there's kelp that's being eaten by urchins, and the urchins are being eaten by sea otters, and you could control various things, see graphs of it. You could ask it to create a simulation of a solar system, and it could even be like this one, a 3D one where you're seeing the planets. And if I click on a planet, it'll give me information about it, including sometimes a poster for visiting it. And this is based on real NASA data and it's 3D, and the planets are being lit up by the light from the sun here. This one's a little hard to show when you're in Zoom because it uses the camera, but it's augmented reality where it knew to load in a model to be able to track where the tip of my finger was, and then I could use it to pop virtual balloons that's added to the video. And you could do some pretty complicated things in mathematics. Like here, I'll show you by this calculator I made. So of course you could just do, 2 plus 2 and say calculate. And there's the 4. I'll make it a little bit bigger too. But if we said 2 to the, I don't know, 1,000th power or something, calculate. It's too big to show it, but here's the number, and it just goes on and on and on. And I could say, oh, I want to see it in English, and presumably you could do it in other languages. So now if I click here, we see the number written out in English or something. And there's more things you could do with this. You could say, here's some number, and I want it divided by 499, and so I'll say divide, and I'll say calculate. And if we look here, oh, it's still in English. That's not really what I wanted. So if we say I want to see it as a decimal, what happened? Oh, I have to click calculate again. There we go. So it even knows which part is the repeating part and which part is the non-repeating part. And it's, again, a very long number, and it's exact, unlike most arithmetic or something. And this was not very hard to talk to a chatbot to create it or something. All right. You could even make with generative AI, you could make in this case like a little musical about prime number.
I've been thinking about numbers, both big and small. But there's one type of number that stands tall. Primes, oh primes, they're quite sublime. And I'll prove to you why they'll never decline. Suppose there's a limit, a final prime. That would mean all primes are defined. But I've got a trick to make you see that primes go on indefinitely. Take all the primes, multiply them together.
So this
Adding
goes on
one
for
to the product,
another
now
couple of
isn't
minutes,
that
so I'm
clever?
gonna
This new number.
stop it. But you could always click here and see the whole thing. But it's also interesting to, at the very end, I think there's a link to how this was made, where a chatbot was asked for the lyrics, another generative AI program was asked for the song, another program was asked for the illustrations, and another to make a little web app that puts it all together. And you could do physical computing, like with microbits or Arduinos or Raspberry Pis. And you could also create programs that rely upon things maybe only your phone could do. Like here's one that will pick up your current location, and you could give another place and it'll figure out how far away it is. And you could even create apps that inside of them use AI to do speech or recognition or representing language or exploring different kinds of concepts in AI. And you can make very simple apps. These are ones that my grandchildren made just by asking for, in this case, the 4-year-old asked for a game in which there were spiders and butterflies, and there were 2 toilets, and it was important you have to make the butterflies go to the right toilet and the spiders go to the right toilet, and you get points. I mean, it's a silly game, but the point is that even very young children can make something like that. And this is one my 6-year-old grandson made. And you can make very complicated games. This is one that explores the diversity of responses that a chatbot or an LLM can make. And this one is a combination of lots of different capabilities. And again, it was all created by a chatbot. So when I click, every time I get a different emoji, and I can make a whole bunch of them. And I could make them dance together.
Ellis, he's almost fine. Building Lego towers that read.
It's usually a bit faster, but I think somehow with Zoom taking up some of it, I could have each emoji chase another emoji. And again, normally this runs a bit faster. I could add a black hole into this, and then there's gravity that'll suck them in. And there's more features. You could ask for certain things with turning on the microphone. You could have it spell things, but in interest of time, I'm gonna let you guys explore it sometime. And if you hit question mark, you get the full list of things you could do. All right. So how do I make a little web app like that? So let me show you a really simple example. And there's a lot of choices here. And some of these are very good, though they're limited access for the free accounts, but there's some access. But this one's available even for free accounts, and it'll do fine for what I'm about to show. So I could say, I would like a web page that makes up nonsense words. And I could have said it here with dictate or something. So, so it, it describes what features it's going to have and how it's going to work, and it generates this the necessary code. And sometimes it realizes it'd be easier for me to work with it in a canvas. So I could say, please put it in a GPT canvas. So here, what's the difference is that it's now in this section is the conversation, and here's where all the code is. But what's special about the code is that it's got a button here, preview. And now I could click this, and every time I click it, we get another word. And then I can ask for a new feature. Make it speak the word as well. And all these chatbots know all the APIs and libraries, so it doesn't have a difficult time adding that to your thing. So let's see if this works.
COR.
That's not very
Rejo. Zakaud. TE. Kuyukuyo. Vel.
And I could ask for anything. I could say add a slider to control the number of syllables. I think I spelled it wrong. They're pretty, they understand what you're saying. You don't have to be exact. So you see it's edited the thing. Now we got to,
Bebwib. Mini.
if I go all the way to 5.
Tona Sainekbakwu. Posbadikaram. Mizapyamgod.
Okay, hopefully you got the idea there. So that was the thing I was going to talk about in terms of creating creative writing and creating web apps. But let me end with some tips and strategies. So the first point I want to make is that even though chatbots are not people, and you should remember they're not people and don't relate to them as people, but the best way to interact with them, most effective, the way you'll get the most out of them, is to interact with them very much as if they are people. And it even helps to be polite to them, say please and thank you, because in their training, they learned that in conversations they've seen, when somebody is polite and help, that the other person's more likely to be helpful, and that it'll kind of mirror that relationship or behavior. So the kind of relationships you should be striving for is, it could be your mentor or your tutor or your collaborator, but don't, probably not healthy to have it be your friend. Or so another strategy is, and that's what I did just now with the nonsense words, is you start with a very simple thing and you give some feedback, and then you could ask questions. How does this work? Or, what would be another thing to do? And then you could suggest improvements, or you could ask it to suggest improvements, and then you keep repeating. And this is not very different from how you would work together with some people, another person, try and work out, create something together. And this strategy works for both, writing tasks and programming tasks. And it's important to understand that chatbots are easy to customize. You could tell them briefly your age, interests, goals. You could even tell them what language you prefer and stuff. And you shouldn't give them personal identifying information, because it might end up possibly in its training or something. Let me just really quickly show you what that's like. Sorry, we jumped ahead here. Oops, I don't know why I did that. So let's pick Claude this time. And if I say, you know, I'm 8 years old and have never done programming, even though maybe many of you have, and I want to make a game. And I think it'll interact with me with a simpler language, expecting a lot less background knowledge and so on. But it's suggesting I use Scratch. No, I want you to help me make. So it's already suggesting a game. And you know, you might say, no, not that one. And or you could say that's a good start, but here's how you want to improve it or something. And it also has, as soon as it finishes generating this game, you'll be able to run it right here in the browser. And I could have said, you know, I don't want you to do too much. Move my finger around, and there's the star, catching stars. Oh, wow. All right. Let's close that up. So that's an important lesson here that that you could customize them to the way you want. And many people think that the right way to interact with chatbots is prompt engineering, where you carefully design a prompt that says exactly what you want. And if it's not working, you edit it and try again. Oh, feelings. Sorry, I have to fix that. Ethan Malick's a very well-known AI researcher. He's also a business professor, and he's got a very nice website called One Useful Thing, and he wrote a nice blog post all about prompting. So it's a conversation, I think, is the important thing, not the prompts. And this is the final point I wanted to make, which is you should just experiment, just try things and be creative. And then as you're doing it, think about what you're doing, think about how it responded, try to learn from the experience you're having. So I think, yep, that's what I wanted to say. So I'll stop sharing. And I hope there's some time to answer some questions.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Ken. So if any students have any questions, I think you can ask. Can you unmute?
Hello. Hello, sir.
Hello.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Sir, actually, this may seem like a bit out of like webinar question, but I wanted to ask if somebody wants to pursue like an undergraduate degree here at Oxford in AI. So, what are the requirements that Oxford needs for them to like get admission in it?
Right. Well, maybe I'll give a more general answer than just Oxford, and also general advice about how to learn more about computation. Because I was very much focusing on how you could be creative, and in the process, you're going to acquire lots of good design skills and critical thinking to be able to give good feedback to a chatbot, and you're also improving your conversational skills, and you're learning something about the strengths and weaknesses of current chatbots. So there's a lot of good things you could do, even if you're not interested in pursuing computer science career. But if you are, it's really tricky these days because how rapidly everything is changing. And in general, especially places like MIT, I think they really value evidence that you're really passionate about the field, that you're very creative, that you've tried to do some interesting projects on your own, and that's probably the best way to get into some of the top universities. Now, Oxford is a little bit traditional, and I think they pay much more attention to sort of grades and more basic stuff like that. But I think uh, if you have done some good projects, especially if you manage to get people to pay attention to them, maybe by promoting them, putting them on archive and getting people to give some feedback, that I think that's the best way to get into a good computer science course, especially one that's focused on AI.
Sir, I have a question.
Okay.
Just for the website, is it really necessary to use Python?
Right. So I prefer not using Python. If you really want to learn Python or you already know it, it'll very easily generate the Python code. And in most cases, you're going to have to copy and paste it into some Python interpreter and go back and forth. And sometimes it'll say, okay, now update this function, and you have to find the right function. It's a little bit more clumsy. And then it becomes harder to share with people what you've made because not everybody has a Python interpreter handy, and it's a little hard to host things and so on. So I strongly prefer doing it all with web pages because you still have it's just as high level or just as high quality as Python. The JavaScript is equally good to Python, but it has the advantage of being able to run in every browser on phones, tablets, laptops without anybody installing anything. So, and also in the context of schools, Python, the school has to worry about, misuse, somebody creating programs that does some damage to the file system or whatever. If you're creating web pages, the browsers kind of ensure that it doesn't do anything that the school wouldn't want. So it's better to, another reason to focus on creating web apps or web pages that are interactive.
Oh, okay. Which language is the most recommended?
Yeah, I mean, my favorite these days is JavaScript because it's both a good language, but it's got so much support from all these big companies that JavaScript's implemented, incredibly well inside of Chrome or Safari or all these browsers that they implement it. So it runs very fast, very reliably, and it's a pretty good language. So that's my favorite. But it's when it comes to creating apps in using chatbots, I think any of the top 10 most popular languages are fine because the chatbots have read so much or have been trained on so many example programs that if you want to learn Java or you want to learn C++, whatever, it knows those very well. But if you want to use a language that's not in the most 10 or 20 most popular languages, then it doesn't know it as well and there isn't as much documentation or sample programs, and it'll be less helpful for when you're trying to build things together with it.
Okay, thank you so much.
And I guess I should say, if you don't have programming experience, then web apps is by far the much easier way to go. But if you already know Python and are comfortable with it, or you already know Java or C++, then it's up to you.
How what kind of projects do we have to make to get enrolled in Oxford?
Yeah, I don't think there's any kind of rule. I think it just helps to have done a few impressive ones, and it's not guaranteed. It's very, very competitive. So, but on the other hand, it's not time wasted. Both you're going to learn a lot, acquire a lot of good skills, and you might those same projects would be helpful for getting into many other places too.
Okay, thank you.
Thank. Any other questions, or we can, or we are planning to
I
end
do
this?
have a question.
I do have.
Okay.
Okay, maybe we can take last two questions now.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
So, okay, you can start.
Okay, thank you, sir. And I would like to ask you a question. Do you think AI can replace coders and programmers one day? So
Yeah,
actually doing their job?
right. Um, it's already replacing a lot of junior programmers, where the more senior programmers are using AI to generate, large chunks of their code. I mean, Google recently said, 25% of their programs now are written by AI, and some experts have said, well, that was 6 months ago. It's probably half by now. So the what it means is that if you're thinking about a career in software engineering or computer science, that I think you have to focus on skills of you know, creativity, communication skills, of being able to understand things at many different levels. I think it's going to be very difficult for um, kind of basic programming jobs, and that the more advanced ones will be people that really know how to create large systems together with chatbots or LMs, that they won't be doing it on their own as they have been. There's some surveys, I think, already showing that the top programmers in the world, 70-80% of them regularly rely
Yes.
on chatbots to make them much more productive.
So it will be hard for us to be in the level of AI
Yeah,
as programmers.
right. So there's huge demand, right, for people that could be AI engineers or AI programmers or AI researchers. So, and one of the things great about these chatbots is they could help you learn about AI and help you build programs that rely upon AI. So, you know, they could be a great help for learning those things.
Thank you.
Okay, so see, my question is, you said that you prefer JavaScript, okay,
Right.
than the other languages. Okay, what I hear is that the Java, no, that the Python is the strongest and the most used. Like, for me, Python is better, but I like, why do you choose JavaScript?
Right. So first off, it's definitely the better one for beginners, because uh, because again, you don't have to have as much background knowledge to be able to to use it. If you already have learned uh, Python, then I guess my view is it's sort of Python's then equally good as JavaScript. And it is true that when it comes to if you want to build AI programs, that there's great libraries in Python that Python researchers and engineers use. The JavaScript equivalents are very good, but they're not at the same level. But for the kinds of things that you might do, that they're probably perfectly adequate. But also, I think that when it comes to choosing between the top few programming languages, it's partly a matter of taste, and what you've already learned. In terms of the popularity, if you do a Google search on, what are the top most popular languages, I think JavaScript and Python are very close because there's so many people that need to implement. Every website is relying heavily on JavaScript, so there's millions of interactive websites. So that makes JavaScript quite important.
Okay. So
Mm.
what do you give it advice for beginners of Python like me?
Yeah, I think the one advice is to start off with a chatbot and say, I'm just learning Python. Could you help me? Let's do a small little program together. It probably is a good idea to tell it, I want to learn, so you shouldn't do too much uh, of the work. And I've tried that a few times, pretending to not know any Python, and it starts asking a few questions about what kind of little program do you want to do, and then you start writing it, and then you don't know how to do something, and you ask it, and it could be a very good way to learn the language by building something together with the chatbot and asking it questions along the way, and it asking you questions as well. But you have to do that. You have to start off with a few sentences telling it this is what you want, that you want to learn Python. You don't want it to do too much. You want it to ask you questions and help you in response to, yeah. You might have to, fine tune that initial 2 or 3 sentences to get it to be behaving the way you want. But I think it could be a great way to learn Python, and at the same time build something together with ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or something.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Good luck with it. Good.
Okay. So thanks, Dr. Ken. Thanks
Yeah.
to all the participants. I hope everyone enjoyed the session and it was some new learnings for all of you. Just 2 things which I wanted to share. So one is Dr. Khan has also written a book, AI Apprenticeship, right? So
Right.
which talks about various applications of generative AI. If you guys wants to subscribe or buy the book, then that is available, right? So it is available on Amazon.
Right. Right.
Yeah, so you can look for that books. So it will be really useful for you. Also, we are launching a new program. Like you must be aware about programs with Clever. So we are launching a new program called Global Apprenticeship in Generative AI, and Dr. Ken will also be with us in that program. So if you subscribe to that program, then we will be also issuing the book to all of you, right? So that will be part of this program. So thanks for attending the session. If you do fill up the feedback form and connect with us, if you definitely like to know more or build more projects under the guidance of mentors using ChatGPT and various other platforms. So it will be a very immersive program and it will be really helpful for all the students. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks.